It's been a weird week.
Yeah, very weird.
Yeah. How do you take it all in?
I see it as a cleansing.
Yeah.
Just it sure hasn't changed my opinions on anything. I'm a little shocked at the size of the scam that was being played on everyone, and when you're dealing with private equity, not a publicly traded company where you can kind of peer into the books. It's a little hard to kind of know what you were dealing with, but like anybody else, when you see athletes running around, like prominent athletes, we're not talking like small athlete like Tom Brady and the such, right? Like
the GOAT.
Yeah. And stadiums. I mean, actually the stadiums were probably the best cue you had that maybe they were more concerning. You should be more concerned than not, because the whole stadium naming thing to me is.
Well, I took that though as they must be very well funded or doing particularly well.
Yeah. I see it. I see that as you see a lot of different companies that will name a stadium and they're desperate for marketing, right? But maybe not the best product underneath of it. Sometimes you see that a lot with stadium names, and then the company goes bankrupt within years after that. But
there you go. This is the stadium naming curse.
There you go. Exactly.
There's so many of these companies that have.
Oh really?
Sponsored stadiums and gone bust.
Yeah. So like the stadium name isn't a good example, but like when you had these really big names of people.
The National Car Rental Stadium. What an exciting name.
It's crazy.
Wow.
But in general, my point is more like I didn't see FTX blowing up in literally seconds. And when you can't peer into the numbers and you can't actually see what's being done, like it's kind of hard to be able to see something like that coming. Now, you gotta wonder, like, who was auditing these books and he had no board members, and like how.
Well, the Sequoia guy wasn't.
It's crazy.
The Sequoia guy on the board they said the only photo of him is like from the back of him in front of the computer. You sent me that video, Danny.
Oh,
was that my brother who sent me that? My brother sent me this video. Let me send you it.
When you think about the governance of FTX, which is super important for people that are like trying to piece things together, right? At the end of this, you have to say, who are the adults at the table that were working with them and advising them? And I think what you have when you really pull back and look at and analyze what happened, when you have a company that's demonstrating a growth rate, a hyperbolic growth rate, VCs, venture capital money, all this fiat that sits inside of the VC space that's trying to gain a piece of that equity, they just don't even care, because what's driving their investment thesis is they're just looking at the numbers of users.
It's right checks.
That's right. And they're just like, I don't care who's on your board. I don't care like any of that stuff. I just see the user counts going up. So just give them more money. And then you're talking multiples, right? So like their last round was whatever, their next round is going to be higher. And so then you get these situations where they do that. And that's not even talking about the fraud that was happening in FTX, right? That's a whole nother story. But
can you look up how much they raised?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand. One of the things I don't understand is, firstly, how do you think you're going to get away with it? And secondly, why haven't you thought this through? I mean, when you look at Bernie Madoff, he got 150 years in prison. Okay, He was never coming out. Multiple people committed suicide, including his son. Mm-hmm. Lives were devastated.
Yeah.
Funds, were devastated. Like, kids didn't have operations based on the money that was lost.
Yeah.
There were bone marrow transplant operations that didn't happen. But in your head, it's like, even if you get in this situation, you're facing the consequence of maybe going to jail for decades. Mm-hmm. Like, Sam could go to jail for decades.
Oh yeah, I hope he does.
Yeah,
I hope he does.
And that's like his whole, like, was he put in a position he shouldn't have been in?
Well, I mean, it wasn't that he was put in a position. I mean, he created this monster.
Yeah.
He created this monster from the ground up. And, there's a really important quote that I always remember from Buffett, and I'm not going to get it exactly right. But it goes something like, when you have a person of superior intelligence and you match that with somebody who's casual with the truth or unethical, you have the most dangerous person you can possibly create in that scenario. And I think that's what you had with Sam. I mean, he was extremely intelligent, and intelligent from a trading prop desk kind of way, which was Alameda. And when you have that and you combine it with this person who is very casual with the truth and very comfortable in a gray space, and in this case, just outright scammer. He didn't care. He's taking customer funds to go then trade them and try to earn it back without. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, but why? I mean, also
ego.
Well, how bad were Alameda at trading as well?
Oh yeah, like how bad would you have to be? Yeah.
Because they had a good reputation beforehand, didn't they?
Yeah.
That was the same with Three Arrows.
Exactly, yeah.
Did you find out how much they...
I think it's about just short of 2 billion, like 1.7 billion, I think.
Do you know much of that was Sequoia?
It was a lot.
I mean...
I think, I don't know, let me have a look.
What are the consequences for them?
The thing for me that speaks to the ego is there was like this chat log of when he took a Sequoia meeting, and he was literally playing video games while he was taking the Sequoia meeting.
I kind of like that.
It's like,
I mean, it's insane.
For me, it's a respect thing. Like you have such a monstrous ego that you don't even have respect for this company that's about to literally give you billions of dollars to fund because you're not cash flow positive. That's why he's taking money. It's because he's not producing free cash flows of his own.
Do you think it's ego, or do you think he's just? It may be that because he's on the spectrum, right? Is he autistic, or
I don't know. I don't know what it is, but for me, it's like I personally would never in a million years go, because think about it, like your company's dependent on like all those employees that he has that works for FTX and all those customer funds, all that stuff, right? It all depends on him going and raising more money because he's not profitable. So he has to secure the funding. And this idiot is literally there playing a Dungeons and Dragons game during the call. Now, this is where you got to double down on the insanity of it. The people in the Sequoia log, he's there playing video games, and he's like, this is where he's intelligent in that he knew what they needed to hear, and what they needed to hear was there's more runway for growth is all you got to convince them of, right? So he's there saying, oh yeah, I see my app, the FTX app, where you can go do this, you can go buy a banana with it. And the chat log goes crazy. I love this guy. This guy's so smart. And so then I'm thinking, and I'm just imagining like what was taking place. This is over Zoom, right? I can just imagine the 25-year-old Ivy League Sequoia people, right? 25 to 35-year-old Sequoia people that are on the call that are typing these things. I imagine them with two screens. They've got Sam on one of them, and then on the other screen, they're like searching Twitter, or they're watching some other thing that they're just doing multitasking. And he says one thing, and one person in the chat log says they love him, and they're like, okay, well, let me respond to this like I'm actually partaking it. So like you have this dichotomy of just separation, like they're not all in the same room, they're not fully engaged, and you're talking about billions of dollars and millions of people that are being impacted by this. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, I do wonder what the impact will be now, because Mount Gox was
This was Mount Gox times like 100, right?
Well,
1,000 or whatever.
But off the back of that, like I know Coinbase are not a particularly popular exchange with Bitcoiners. I know Kraken and Gemini aren't because they're not Bitcoin only. I know Binance aren't for various reasons, but at least we understand with those exchanges that they are running tight ships, tight operations. They've
Well, they're
managed,
publicly traded, like
well,
Coinbase.
Coinbase is,
yeah.
but and I think Kraken eventually will be. I'm sure Gemini will be at some point. But at the same time, you do understand these are people running proper businesses now.
Yeah.
You know, they've been operational for multiple years. They're profitable businesses, and this is somebody who's come in recklessly and damaged the industry, damaged individuals, damaged businesses, damaged people's holdings in Bitcoins.
Yeah.
You know, there is some dark consequences for this. And I know people hate regulations. And I know people hate the likes of kind of Coinbase being so friendly with regulators. But at the same time, it's like, well, they're building proper businesses within the infrastructure. And so that'll be our coffee. So, so for me, it's kind of like, I've kind of got a little bit more respect now for the likes of Coinbase, Kraken, Gemini for what they've done.
I'm hesitant to really have an opinion because I just don't know any of their books. I don't know the people well enough to really comment.
Yeah.
I can tell you this was an absolute cesspool. And if you would have asked me, you know, as it started getting closer, it became way more obvious. You know, I was a couple days before this happened, I tweeted out like, "Hey, is Sam basically the next Enron?" And sure enough, he was.
Yeah. The speed was unbelievable.
The speed was unbelievable, which gets straight to the vaporware, which is proof of stake shitcoins, and how much they can be levered to create billions of dollars out of thin air. A $1 billion hole on a balance sheet can deflate literally in hours. Billions. Like people just can't wrap their head around. I think we're so psychologically detached from how much $8 billion is.
Yeah.
Because we talk about these numbers and we talk about billionaires but like if you were gonna like break that out, like I don't know what that would be, but I would guess like that'd be like 100 people working like 10,000 years straight or some crazy number, right? People can do the math, but it would be something like that.
Do you think it reflects where we are in the kind of economic cycle as well? In that it's, you know, we've got to this kind of end point where everything's blowing up. It's kind of like, let's throw money at companies. These companies are growing quick and blind. Do you think it's just a reflection of where we are?
Yes.
Like it's almost like not only is it cleansing for the kind of, let's say, broad crypto industry, but we're going through a cleansing in the economy anyway.
Yeah. Absolutely.
To make $1 billion at minimum wage, you have to work for 69,000 years.
69,000
That's for 1
years.
billion, and he's lost 10 plus.
Yeah. So if you
pretty
take 100 people, it would take just like people need to frame things in terms of actual proof of work labor that a person would have to perform. And this clown literally just like almost like a Thanos kind of thing. He snaps his finger and he just like, think about that. The hours, the churn, the actual physical human labor that represents. And this dude just, he's there playing video games to bringing on billions of dollars, doing like, it was just.
Well, Preston, we know how hard we've worked the last 4 or 5 years to just build this, right?
Yeah.
And our revenues obviously are nowhere near that, but we work so hard and we conserve our capital, and you know, we consider like, what happens next year if the market is sideways? What if we don't have enough sponsors? Let's put some money by and make sure we can survive. Have we got a year? What's our runway? Or maybe it's a year. You know, we're not looking to borrow anyone's money. We're not looking to print a token. We work hard and try and protect ourselves.
Yeah. And
like you say, he has just eviscerated so much productivity.
Yeah. Well, if there's some things to kind of look at that are positives that are coming out of it, is look at all the people that have been screaming, "Not your keys, not your coins." They're Mount Goxers, right? Or they were around back in that day, and they saw firsthand the devastation that it created. Well, you just created a whole lot more of those people to inform, you know, everyone as we move forward in the timeline here, how vitally important that is to be able to hunker down in your own private custody wall. I mean, let me tell you, I've slept pretty well these last this last week, right? And there's a reason why. Because I know nobody can take the coins that I've got. And there's people learning that really hard lesson. And there was people in the space that were trying to warn everybody to get a hold of your stuff. So those are positives. On the policy side, Sam was, I had a conversation with Jason Brett recently.
Who's that?
He's a lobbyist that works on the Hill and up in DC, and he was saying that Sam was really trying to jam through this new bill. I think the bill is what is it called? The OCCP.
Yeah.
He was like aggressively trying to push this new bill through, and it was all in benefit of an FTX exchange. The way that it was being worded. And you had the Gillibrand Lummis bill that was preceding it that seemed like that was going to be the direction that the policy was going to take, which, is definitely not perfect, but in the grant, like comparing the two is way better than this one that was going to be jammed through. And when I talked to Jason just a couple days before all this happened, he was like, and that we recorded a show that was released. People can kind of check it out to kind of see how frustrated I was in the interview of like, how is this guy able to influence policy so aggressively? Well, he was able to do it because he was literally stealing customers' funds and going and trading it and creating fake money out of FTT tokens by levering them and building them onto the balance sheet of Alameda, right? And then taking all that and then going and influencing people on the Hill to jam through a policy that's not advantageous for the community. It was advantageous for his parasitic behavior.
How much
I
did
think he was like the sixth biggest donator to the Democrat Party as well, or fifth or sixth.
Have you got the? Because I'm sure I saw numbers which were like tens of millions or
they were
hundreds.
They were tens of millions with the intent of them being 9-figure donations, like high 9-figure donations, like almost nearly $1 billion was the intention, but what he actually gave was way less. And let me strongly, I am as apolitical as they come. And if he was making donations to one party or the other, like I'm gonna say, hey, that's not right, especially when you're taking customer funds out of FTX and scamming people. And
here you go. Sam Bankman-Fried donated 40 million in the midterms.
But you can find articles where he was intent on donating 900 million.
Crazy.
How can you be worth 32 billion and then 0 weeks later? I mean, I know how, because it's all fake.
It was all vaporware.
Yeah, all vaporware. But how is somebody not on top of this? But yeah, back to my previous point. Is this just a reflection of?
It is
everything. Really,
it is absolutely a reflection of. And you know what else is a reflection? If we'd go back in time and you look at the monkey JPEGs. And you look at the insanity in the bidding of millions of dollars for things that you could literally go onto a computer. I mean, you're talking about like 8-bit video game characters that this one's green, this one's blue, this one's purple, and this one's got like that. Those are $1 million. Like that was the signal of your top. This is what a bottom starts to look like.
Right.
And now how long does this go? I don't know. It really depends on how much the central bankers allow it to continue to persist, but they have got to get the inflation prints lower. So
where are we at price wise?
We are,
there seems to be a magnet around 20k
around
though.
17, like 16.8.
Huh. But I mean, again, we swallowed a lot of bad news to still have Bitcoin at 16.8.
Yeah.
Luna.
Yeah, I mean, the
Celsius. This. I mean, it's essentially 3 or 4 Mt. Gox in the space of 6 months.
This is extremely healthy stuff as far as I'm concerned. That's all of those activities are. Could you imagine building on top of those? Like if we weren't going through this tightening right now, and let's say they were releasing the floodgates again, like you're just going to have more of these types of activities that can kind of get built on top of this. Like you want to talk about a real meltdown, like that would be really concerning. And from an engineering standpoint, you start to wonder, in the policy standpoint, if the policies start getting built, like, I don't know what would have happened from a policy standpoint if this guy was able to really influence key policymakers and jam some of this stuff through. And I mean, holy, that's not a world I want to live in.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I think the cleansing is good. It's
Yeah.
what comes out of it. I clash with people on the borrowing lending side of things because it's not your keys, not your Bitcoin. But I also think there is going to be a market for financial services for borrowing and lending. I think the rates will need to be higher.
I think it's going to be peer to peer.
Yeah.
Like Hodl Hodl is a great example of, hey, why haven't they blown up? Like, well, there's a reason. It's because they are literally going peer to peer to another person, over collateralized, right? And so if that loan to value starts dropping down, there's protocols that force that loan to be closed out. When you start putting it into a black box and you have people like scam bankman fraud here.
No, it's even better. It's scam, bankrupt,
Bankster.
bankrupt fraud.
Fraud.
It's almost like I was looking at it the other day. I was thinking, hold on, is this like are we being trolled here?
We're totally in a simulation.
How can his name be pretty much, if you squint, scam, bankrupt, fraud, and he's done this? It's like, come on.
But to your point on the borrowing and lending, I think in the future, like the only thing that I can see that would make any of that digestible is if you're going peer to peer, is because when you start consolidating it, almost like a consolidated debt obligation from like the 2008 crisis, when you're pulling all this stuff together, there's systemic risk that gets built into that is disastrous.